So today I want to have a conversation about equity. Let's go ahead and get to it.
What do all children need to be successful? They need equity. See, I learned this lesson.
I'm going to first and foremost, I'm going to start off by saying I absolutely wholeheartedly disagree. I disagree. The idea of equity is the idea that the idea of equity is equality of outcome. And that's saying that you believe that outside forces have the right to basically control and dictate who gets to win. In other words, so sorry, hate to say it. No, you might not like the sound of it. It's communism. It's socialism. Not good for America. Just saying.
Growing up in King William County, Virginia, it was taught to me by my mother. My mother, she was the best teacher I had.
Whoa. I think that there's a lot to unpack right there. Because the guy, first and foremost, he's teaching something wrong. He's coming. See, the idea of equity is a big problem. I have this problem with Black culture, and that is that we despite being in the best positions that we've ever been in throughout history, we're still victims in the mind. And a lot of that mentality comes through in how we operate and how we act. So I just think it's really interesting that coming from the place that he's coming from, to equity in itself is a position of victimhood. And in a nutshell, he's saying that his mom is the one that taught him this.
Even though she only had a 6th grade education the majority of her life. And I remember she taught me these lessons of equity every day growing up. She would always tell us that we could be whatever we wanted, and she always treated us with that equity and that love that we needed. But the most important,
I think that it's bad to tell kids that they can be whatever they want. I don't have kids myself yet, but I'm just saying I think it's wrong to tell people. Like, it's good to have an imagination, but I think it's better to tell kids that they can be whatever they work hard at, because some people they just, as this equity demands, they need special treatment, right? Right.
lesson she taught me, I remember, was September 9th, 1993. See, we grew up in rural Virginia, in King William County, and there wasn't much to do in King William County. However, when you turned 15, you could go to the local teen club one town over. And so I remember that day, September 9th, I woke up, I pressed my cross colors outfit, and I told my brothers, I was like, I'm going to the club with you all tonight. And my brother's like, you rolling? I'm rolling. And so we went out. We were headed out the door, and my mother said, hey, where you guys going? I was like, we going to the club, Mom. And Mom said, okay, Rodney, you not going. What do you mean?
Mama always hating.
Then her voice changed, and she said it again. And at that point, I kind of realized I wasn't going to.
So I'm going to assume that he was probably raised in a single parent household, because he hasn't mentioned a father yet. So that may or may not play into what I have to say,
The club that night. So I mumbled off into the room, teenage angst, never let me do nothing. But then 2 weeks later.
And by the way, make sure you like and subscribe to the video, and to the channel, not the video. Like the video and subscribe to the channel.
My mother went out of town. So you know what I did? Woke up, pressed that outfit again, told my brothers we going to the club. Now my brother gave me a warning. He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to the club." And so I left and we went to the club. And quite honestly, worst experience of my life. Things were going on that I wasn't ready for. Fight.
I think a lot of people can relate to that experience of, wanting to live a particular lifestyle, wanting to be like everybody else, and then going and experience it and then realizing that it's not exactly what you thought it'd be. I think we all can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you can't, but I think a lot of us can. I definitely can. So I have no problems with this story so far.
Broke out, I got punched in the eye. It was just an overall bad experience. And so about Wednesday of the next week, started to feel a little guilty. And so I went to Ma, who was sitting at the kitchen table, and I said, "Ma, I got something to tell you." And Ma was like, "I was wondering when you was telling me about your eye, but go ahead." And so I told her, I said, "The other night, I went to the club." And then my mother just looked at me and shook her head, and she said, "Mm-hmm." Now see, if you have a mother like mine, when you hear that phrase like that, you don't know whether to run, hide, call 911, or give her a hug. But my mother, she looked at me, and I was expecting to get blasted, and she told me, "I'm not gonna punish you because I feel you learned your lesson." And so I asked her a question. I said, "Ma, why couldn't I go to the club? My brothers were 15 and they went to the club. Why wasn't I allowed to go to the club at 15? And then she gave me the piece of advice that changed my life and made me what I am today.
Here we go. The moment of truth, guys. Let's get it. Let's go.
She said, "A good parent knows her children and what they're ready for and not ready for. At 15, your
That's valid.
brothers were ready for that club environment. At 15, you need to grow and mature before you went into that environment. That's why you got punched in the eye."
I think that's valid too. But I disagree with the takeaway.
But you see, that turned out to be my first lesson on equity. Equality said I was 15 and that I could go to this club. Equity said I need to grow and mature enough more before I could enter that environment. And see,
Boom, and that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say I disagree with the takeaway. Because one could argue that it may be for the best that you went and you got punched in the eye because you had to grow and learn and get those experiences. And one could argue that your mother was actually wrong for holding you back and trying to hold you back from it because it's something that you needed to experience, whether you were ready for it or not. Maybe it's something that you needed to experience. So one could also argue that really by trying to keep you from it, your mother might have been doing you more harm than good. So this idea of equity and this idea of catering to each individual person's needs maybe that may not be the case. Now, I can have empathy and say that everybody is not a monolith. I can have empathy and say that. But I'm not talking about it's a lot of situations that could play a factor in that. But I'm talking about when we're talking about issues like race and culture, it's not something that's just I don't believe in equality of outcome. I'm sorry. I believe in equality of opportunity. You should have the right to go and get punched in the eye if you want to. You should have the right to do so. I'm sorry. And I understand that maybe you didn't like getting punched in the eye, but maybe that learning experiences, maybe that's what made you who you are today. But a lesson in equity, just sounds like a bunch of talking points, my guy. Just saying.